Hey guys, it's Joey. I've been trying to record this for the past few weeks and keep getting in my own way, getting stuck in figuring out how to talk about it, so I'm just gonna read what I wrote and try to sound as natural as I can. In September last year, in 2023, I quit my six-figured product design job. I've been working as a designer in the tech industry for nearly 2 decades. First as a motion graphics designer and eventually transitioned into product design for advanced technology companies. I was making a decent buck and things were pretty comfortable. On paper, everything was looking up and up. I had good savings, great health insurance, stock options, a comfortable apartment, and a loving partner. But an emptiness kept gnawing at me from the inside. I thought at first it was just imposter syndrome, not feeling completely at ease within the companies that I've worked in. But I had excellent work ethic. I learned fast, picked up quick. I went the extra mile most of the time, probably unconsciously trying to compensate for this feeling of not enoughness. I did pretty good work that I stood behind with pride. I gained praises from my superiors and got raises. I worked my ass off during the height of the industry. But in the past few years, I really started feeling a kind of crisis slowly creep in. Burnout may be the right word, but it's more than that. I soon started wondering if my work really made an impact in the world. Ever since my days in design school, I've had the aspiration of doing good for the world. That through design I can improve the world with beautiful artwork, products, interactions, services, and experiences. At least that's what I believed I was studying for. But I realized through the course of my career in tech that reality was far from what I thought it was. Whatever was eating at me was more than my own inadequacies, but something else, something way bigger. It seemed that no matter how much a company claims to be a force for good, their actions seem to say otherwise. Somehow it's always about the bottom line. It became clear to me that the industry cared very little about the people that built it. Time and time again, I witnessed nepotism, incompetence, egotists, sexists, racial biases, all kinds of prejudices that manifest themselves in daily interactions, sometimes quite blatantly. And it was never just one thing. The culture of the industry breeds this kind of behavior, especially within the framework of capitalism. It was hard to accept at first, but eventually I had to come to terms that capitalism doesn't care about nurturing creativity, but only to profit from it. I know that now as clear as day. When I started to lose teammates because of layoffs, that's when I really started to feel emotionally impacted. I really cared about all my teammates, and I cared about the work we were doing. When I came into work or logged on for the day, it was those interactions of getting to know one another, learning about each other's lives that invigorated me. Of course, getting to build something, co-creating together is really where the magic is. I mean, there was a lot of that, but time and time again, it always seemed like an upward battle with egos and personal agendas, poor management, leadership issues that result in shearing off the working level folks. To build something you believed in, together with people you enjoyed working with, for 8 hours a day, you build a kind of relationship with them. And then just to have them ripped from your group because of what? The company not meeting quarterly goals? Their OKRs, their KPIs? It felt immensely unfair for all the livelihoods that were impacted, especially for those with families to support. I've lost count how many teammates I've had to see let go. At some point you just become numb to it, and it's really sad. There's this disingenuousness in the tech industry that they sell you on an attractive mission, an attractive, benefit package, an attractive culture. You drink their Kool-Aid, but as soon as their numbers slip, it's the working level folks that get cut first, but would only reconsider the management or company strategies last. There comes a time in every tech job when I begin to notice the energy change, and I know that the ship is sinking. When people start checking out, start dropping the ball, and the quality slips, and you just realize everyone's just trying to pass the buck to the next person. When you're wondering quarter after quarter which teammate or project is getting cut, and it just puts you in a very unstable place. Meanwhile, fielding all of the additional workload overflowed by the layoffs, the burden which the folks that remain would have to shoulder, to the degree that work never really gets done at all. In the past 3 years, none of the products I worked on were completed, nor were they shipped because of reorgs, layoffs, management missteps, poor financial decisions, or even scandals. Some may say that that's just how it is. That's the nature of the industry. Toughen up and get in line. Get what you want out of it and get out. This type of thinking is so rampant in the tech industry. I've worked with so many folks that are only in it to hop roles, to trade up, to climb the ladder, regardless of who they have to trample over. It's everybody for themselves sometimes, and that never sat right with me. There's a term, rest and vest, used to describe someone who's putting in the minimum of effort while their 401k or stock options are being vested. It's a term that HR probably came up with to shame the people that have checked out, painting them as if they're gaming the system by slacking on the company's dime. At every company, it's easy to point out who's resting and vesting, and you know exactly the type. Even I've been guilty of the term, because how can anyone not get that way when all I'm doing in my last year of work was just managing egos and having meetings about meetings about meetings? I was hardly doing the actual work during the work hours, only to carve out time in the evening so I could focus. It's a symptom of a greater issue when people start checking out. When folks up top stop caring, the folks below stop caring. And it just felt really ick, you know? Even though I was benefiting from it financially at least, but still feeling shitty about it. Things really culminated with me waking up every morning riddled with anxiety and feeling like every cell of my body wanted to scream and throw my laptop out the window. It felt like the slow death of a dream I had long ago. The aspirations of becoming a designer that makes beautiful things and inspires people, that builds technology to solve actual world problems. That dream was slowly fading. I felt like I didn't add anything beautiful to the world, only made some stockholders and CEOs richer. In the fall of 2023, after my last and only designer teammate was let go, I just couldn't do it anymore. There were more important things for me to do with my time. I no longer wanted to trade my hours for dollars. I realized that my time was far more valuable to me and to the world than to sit at a desk with my face planted to a screen for 8 hours a day managing adult babies. One could argue that it may just be that I haven't found the right job, but in all honesty, does that really even exist in a capitalist society like ours? The idea of going on LinkedIn or job postings to find another gig made me want to vomit. Imagining the dog and pony dance that I have to do, put up an act of interest in the company, selling myself and my skills, just to get a seat at the table. Surely my ancestors did not imagine this for me, having lived through lifetimes of struggle just for my light to be diminished by what? Wages and taxes? Bound to indentured servitude for the rest of my days? I mean, wage slavery is a whole other topic I'm not getting into right now. So I stopped working altogether for a while, at least in tech. For the first few months after quitting, I even stopped using my laptop just to focus on whatever my inner child was curious to do day to day. I soaked up anything I was curious to learn, like gardening, learning to grow food, grow medicines. I started writing again and making art for my own sake, draw, rest, even do nothing with my unstructured time. I've dedicated this off-season to really do the inner work, as they say. It's been nearly a year now, and I'm so much happier for it. Sure, I still do things, I still design things, but only for myself and what I'm interested in. And if it is for someone else, I make sure it's aligned with my core values first. Being hardworking was something I learned from my parents, and I think most immigrant children could relate to this. It was just a given that we had to strive for perfection in everything we do. But when work becomes your entire identity for so long, you don't have much else to stand on in the absence of it. Who am I if I'm not doing something worthwhile? What value do I have to share? What's my worth? What's my purpose? There was a period where I felt immense guilt for what felt like abandonment of my craft. After having developed my skills for decades only to stop now. Maybe fellow designers that are watching this could relate, but I just didn't want to whore out my skills to make somebody else's dream a reality anymore, and often at the expense of those less fortunate at that. It's as though my inner creative child felt betrayed and is now refusing to participate, and that's something that I'm in the process of healing right now. I know this rant may sound like I'm airing out my grievances over the tech industry, and yeah, it kind of is. But don't get me wrong, I appreciated everything I gained and learned from my experiences in my career, especially the brilliant colleagues and lifelong friends I've met through those jobs, even though all of them were through trauma bonding. And I'm grateful for the life that I've been able to build for myself, and the financial buffer I got from that career that I get to enjoy. I mean, that's how I'm even able to take this time for myself right now. I just genuinely felt it was time to move on. I think the world needs something different from me right now. And I feel if I talk about it and share it, I can remove myself from this tired narrative, heal, and move on from it. I'm ready for the next thing. So while all this was happening with my job, there was another development happening concurrently, and I feel I have to set some context. I came to the States when I was 9 years old. My family wasn't religious growing up, largely because of the communist cultural revolution that snuffed out a lot of the traditional indigenous spiritual practices in China for generations. So my parents didn't grow up with it. Even though broadly speaking, Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism were the dominant religions or philosophical thought of the Chinese people at the time, no one in my family could really give me the definitive explanations beyond ritual practices and surface level meanings and symbolisms. So I grew up with this spiritual thirst pretty early on. I've been spiritually aware and curious growing up. I used to sit at the religion and spirituality aisle in Barnes & Noble bookstore after school, looking for anything that made sense to me, but nothing really stuck at the time. All the major religions were all kind of ick to me, and my mind just wasn't ready yet for the deeper stuff. Fast forward a few decades, when 2016 rolled around, I got really spiritually hungry and dove deep into it when the world suddenly got really fucking heavy. I knew I needed a way to counter the creeping anxiety I was feeling, and it felt like doom. So I started self-medicating with cannabis and started meditating in earnest. I began filling up my commuting hours full of spiritual podcasts, audiobooks, lectures. Sometimes even in my sleep I would listen to recordings as if to make up for lost time. All the while flying back and forth between Pittsburgh, San Francisco, and Los Angeles for my job nearly every other week. It was those recordings that kept me sane during the peak of my burnout. So when remote work became a thing, it felt like a blessing when the world shut down. Having been given the extra time to spend on myself, I wanted to make sure my independent study, quote unquote, was put to good use. And as an Asian American, I made sure to include both Eastern and Western worldviews and use my inner guidance to discern what resonated and what didn't. It's how I do everything these days. I minimized unnecessary social obligations, became extremely picky about the entertainment I consumed. I minimized spending energy where I didn't feel good spending it, and did my best to figure myself out in what ways I could through deep contemplation, self-inquiry, and lots of time in nature. I even joined a community garden and volunteered there every week, and I still do, because that's the only green space I can have access to on a regular basis. I started to read a lot of contemporary spiritual materials like Alan Watts, Ram Dass, Eckhart Tolle, just to name a few. I call them my spirituality daddies. I felt like I caught fire. You know, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, am I right? Apparently, in whatever form is necessary for your level of conscious awareness. And so, it felt like a fire hose of material started to show up in my daily life through seeming coincidences. Once I made the commitment to learn and to remember who I am, it felt as if spiritual forces started to feed me materials on the daily. And by materials, I mean podcasts, YouTube videos, books, quotes, memes, random wisdom sayings that feel so specific to me that I felt it had to be of spirit. And once I started to understand what synchronicities are, it just became a game I play with the universe. I gradually started reading deeper works like the Bhagavad Gita, Tao Te Ching, Rumi poetry, Gnostic materials from Dead Sea Scrolls and the Nag Hammadi library, the Essene Gospels, and lots of channeled materials like Law of One, the Raw materials, the Seth materials by Jane Roberts. I started to have realizations upon realizations about life and reality through this journey. These realizations were illuminating, often accompanied by familiar euphoric feelings, as though remembering an old joke with old friends. It all felt so familiar, which was the strangest part. Hashtag if you know, you know, am I right? They helped me understand life, love, the soul journey, relationships, and money, and how to live well, how to live right, and how to actually be a whole-ass human being. It just became much easier to leave that previous life behind. I didn't have anyone to share these insights with at the time, though, at least not without it becoming long drawn-out explanations. And when I do get into it with folks, if I see their eyes glaze over, I know it's the wrong audience. I know that not everyone is in the same mental space, consciousness level, or life stage to grasp or be able to make use of insights like these. So I know not to force it. But honestly, it was kind of crushing when you get excited for a new shiny thing you've just encountered, but others around you either don't get it or don't agree or don't care. I know all you highly sensitive peoples and high-functioning neurodivergent folks can relate. But I know all this is changing too, of course. When others around me start talking about the same spiritual things as I do, I know my timeline must have shifted. I've since learned not to get too worked up trying to share something if they're not open to it. It's enough to know that I found a treasure I can keep for myself. I suppose I could have found spiritual leaders, teachers, or mentors to help me figure out what I was going through, but most of the time I just wanted to chat about it without having to join a course or a satsang or some sort of coaching group. So many of the spiritual folks in the scene eventually evolve into some kind of community-based thing, but I guess I just didn't feel ready at the time. Yet, somehow sharing my story now to an unseen audience on the internet just feels easier. And so, it was from my spiritual development that I gathered the courage to finally leave my job, without a plan. Knowing that there's a greater truth beyond what is known, a greater power than what the human mind could ever know, helped me move with resolution and to step into the unknown. I don't have a clear direction on what I'll be working on for the time being, but I do want to bring people along. Will I ever work in tech again? Sure, why not? But it can only happen when it resonates with me. Wherever my spirit leads me, there I'll go. So we arrive finally at why I'm sharing this now. I realized that I'm not alone in this experience. Every time I see a recommended video in my feed telling me how I should tell my story, how my voice matters, I get a little less anxious about posting stuff. I mean, even this whole video was inspired by Gooby and Doobie. His video showed up on my YouTube feed where he talked about why he left his medical career during these strange times. And I felt a lot less alone and afraid after watching his video. So I'm making this to help those that may also need an extra boost to take that leap of faith and strike out into the unknown. I figure that if I don't start now, I'll just keep nagging myself internally until I do anyway, so I'll save myself any further unnecessary pain. I'm just gonna start writing and making videos. I'm in my 40s now, cringe be damned, I know I have to get through it. I'm now seeing that healing the inner creative child means to find that creative spark again, and this time I want to bring others with me, because only in community can we survive all of this. The topics that I'm really into and will likely talk about on this channel are spirituality, esoteric and metaphysical concepts, universal natural laws, ancient wisdom, meditation, consciousness, and the nature of reality, magic and occult arts, gardening, growing food, medicines, psychedelics. I'll probably go in depth about those topics to some degree as well. Honestly, anything and everything that I get into. I don't want to restrict my creativity any more than I already have or have to. So I'll let things unfold organically as they need to. I want to thank you for sticking around this far. I know it's a long story, so I appreciate you taking the time to listen. I hope you found some resonance with the things that I said and can take away something of value. If nothing else, hopefully a moment of peace and serenity. And to close, I want to share a quote by Timothy Leary. I found this after my first heroic dose psychedelics of magic mushrooms trip. And he said, "Admit it, you aren't like them. You're not even close. You may occasionally dress yourself up as one of them, watch the same mindless television shows as they do, maybe even eat at the same fast food sometimes. But it seems that the more you try to fit in, the more you feel like an outsider, watching the normal people as they go about their automatic existences. For every time you say club passwords like, 'Have a nice day,' and 'Weather is awful today, eh?' you yearn inside to say forbidden things like, 'Tell me something that makes you cry,' or 'What do you think deja vu is for?' Face it, you even want to talk to that girl in the elevator. But what if that girl in the elevator and the balding man who walks past your cubicle at work are thinking the same thing? Who knows what you might learn from taking a chance on a conversation with a stranger? Everyone carries a piece of the puzzle. Nobody comes into your life by mere coincidence. Trust your instincts, do the unexpected, find the others." And with that, okay, thanks, love you, bye.